Hello and welcome back to another episode of Pass the Syrup, the estate agency podcast for agents, with agents, by agents, everything agent related. So last week or the week before last, we had three lovely ladies on, and in true woke fashion, we've got to balance out with three guy guests. Handsome devils, the lot of them, all previous guests. Mr. Baldock, Matt Baldock, Mr. Chelmsford Estate Agency, opinionated, outspoken, handsome. He's everything you're looking for in an estate agent. Thankfully, he's got his brother who does, operationally, who probably runs the show nicely for him. He's got all the front of house stuff, got all the charm, all the wit, all the banter. So don't let us down, Matt. How's things, mate?
Yeah, good, mate. How are you?
I'm bloody marvellous. I'm running an hour late, as you three know. So yeah, I'm wonderful, all things considered. Had a great training session this morning with the guys. We covered off why is the market so confusing, and we've looked at 5 key conversations we have with our consumer base every day, and we try to find data to support the conversations we're having. And it's an exercise you should run with your teams, because the amount of data out there that conflicts is phenomenal. And the point we're trying to make is, as agents, if we're struggling with that, imagine what world the consumer's living in right now. So that was quite good, actually. And it's one of those sessions where I get to do a lot of watching and a lot of talking. So I'll make up for it right now.
I was just doing that polite thing where you say, how are you? I know. Expect a full essay answer, but yeah, thanks.
Yeah, also, for breakfast, I had, no, all right. Best Barnet in EXP, maybe in a estate agency generally. Did you get the trim today, Scott? You're looking
do you know what, though?
Good.
But I'm getting it trimmed in an hour, so I'm going to Vegas on Monday. So this is like outgrown, ready to try and style it. But it's a very neglected part of my appearance, as you recognise.
I would not touch it if I was you. I love it. I think it's honestly. I mean, I'm just going to avoid the fact that you said I'm going to Vegas next week. For my own mental health, I need a trip like Vegas in my life right now. But I would be taking that Barnet with me if I was you, because sex appeal, it's there, mate. It's there. Finally, Pelosi-Buchanan got a little bit of who's the bad guy in Avengers? What's his name? With the hand.
Thanos.
You got a bit of Thanos about you with that new facial hair. I quite like it. I like it.
Yeah. Again, a bit like Scott, I need a trim. So yeah.
The Thanos of Abergavenny, EXP's newest, or one of the newest agents, and because I've screwed you over by starting an hour late, you're in a meeting room. That's amazing. The commitment. Forget EXP training. I'm all about the podcast. How's it going?
I know. Really well, mate. Really good. So yeah, three weeks in with the EXP. Loving it so far. So yeah, just looking forward. We've got a mastermind here in Bristol. So I might have to miss the first bit, but I'm sure I'll pick it all up in the end.
Good man. I thought we were going to get the EXP pitch there, but I'm sure that will come in later on. Yeah, we got you're outnumbering poor Matt.
I don't want to play top trumps on Scott, but I'm getting a haircut tomorrow because I'm off to Birmingham next week. So
destroyed me already, Matt. I feel devastated.
I mean, they do say Birmingham is the Las Vegas of the UK, don't they?
Well, I think there's a lot of things about Birmingham.
Yeah. Well, enjoy. Very different weeks coming up for you two. Right, let's get straight into it. So, new format. We're a few months into this podcast. We're going to try something a little bit new, because I get the feeling that people are sick and tired of talking about property prices and interest rates and the same old thing over and over again. I know I am. So we're going to start with the big question. Every week, one big question. If you want to take part, firstly, subscribe, like, comment, engage, all the usual blah, blah, blah. But also, if you want to send in a question and you want 3 really great agents to answer it, do it. Get involved. Get stuck in. This week's question comes from me. Big, chunky, juicy, going to be loads of debate here. I know it. My question to you 3 fantastic agents, all your experience: why are the majority of salespeople in a state agency not very good salespeople? Oh, it's so spiky. I can hear people just right now, just, how dare he say that? I'm a fantastic salesperson. Or, yeah, why aren't they very good? Who's itching to get just throw something out there?
I'll start. Although I was going to say, when I looked at who you had on the pod this week, I was a little bit disappointed, not because of the individuals, but because I largely agree with everything Matt posts on LinkedIn, and Alex is part of the same team as me. So I don't know how spiky it's going to get, but let's just see. I think I think the main reason is that you can get away with it in agency. 2/3 of the job is done for us nowadays. We take photographs, we stick them on Rightmove, and if a client wants them and they come in with a half decent offer, how needed are we as part of that process? And I think as a result, over the last sort of 15 to 20 years that I've been in the business, I've just seen a decline in training, because whether you train or not, you can largely get away with having some very average salespeople in your business. I don't think that won't exist at the very best agencies, but if we're talking about the median, then I think that's why. I think you can get away with it.
Alex, Matt, get away with it? Is it? I mean, is the question fair? Are the vast majority of estate agents average salespeople?
I think it depends also what you're classing as salespeople, because I think the reason is that people don't understand sales. I think you get a lot of people coming into it with like the stereotype salesperson, I'm going to sell something, and they don't really understand that selling is actually just solving someone's problem, right? And then you get I think you've got a lot of industry trainers that are quite outdated, that kind of doing that, teaching old school sales techniques, and also I think we're overcompensating. So that's quite a classic line, is the best salespeople understand about solving problems. But the problem isn't really that big in agency. People need to move, and they need to move generally because they need a bigger house, a smaller house, someone's passed away sadly, or there's a divorce. And again, sometimes people will try and make themselves sound clever, and seller course will try and really get into what the problem is. That the problem's fairly simple. You just need to actually listen to it and understand it, and show the customer how you're going to help it. But I think you get a lot of agents that come into it and they want to be, they want to sound cleverer than they are, and they've got this idea in their mind that it's without having that people wear suits, it's a shiny suit brigade, got a big watch, got to be really slick, and a bit like a kind of second-hand car salesman or window person. And that's not really it's about just sitting in someone's lounge and generally having a conversation, actually being a normal person as opposed to actually being a salesperson.
So all right, by that answer, let me ask you a secondary question. What is a good salesperson?
A good salesperson is somebody that can listen to what the customer / client wants and work out the best solution for them. Okay.
And what metrics would you use to assess whether somebody's a good salesperson?
KPIs all day long. I want to know how many viewings they've made, how many valuations they've booked, did they work till 10 o'clock at night, did they wear a tie, did they have brown shoes with a blue suit, and et cetera, et cetera. I think it's all going to come down to numbers, right? And I have varying thoughts on the KPIs, but ultimately, if it's sales, are properties being sold or not? And that's the key, right? And the other thing is with agency, we're double-end sales, right? So if you are selling most things in life, you get given the product and then you sell that. With agency, you've got to sell yourselves to get the listing, and then you've got to sell the listing. And then I agree with Scott, it's become easier. The properties are almost, I don't like to say they're selling themselves, but that bit has become a bit easier, although now there is a difference. I've always said agents don't actually sell the houses, they sell the idea of getting through the front door. Yeah, so we sell the idea of going through the front door. House does the legwork then, and then we take over negotiating to make sure we get the best price and we sell the best price. And that's the bit that we have to kind of remember. So, but again, it's listening. So it's understanding. The way it was always spoke to me is if someone says, I want a 3-bedroom house, you find out why they want a 3-bedroom house. If it turns out they need 2 and a study, well, then actually, if you've got a 2-bedroom house with a study downstairs, that works. Whereas if you just put 3 bedrooms into your CRM and let that do all the work, they're never going to hear about it. So I think it is listening and communication. I just think pretty much everything in this market comes down to communication.
Okay. So I agree with everything you just said, but I'm definitely going to ask that question again because you didn't answer it. What makes a good salesperson? What metrics are you looking at?
Oh, I'm looking at how many conversations they're having.
Okay.
I'm looking at talk time.
Okay.
I'm looking at the questions that they're asking, and then what they're doing and how they're interpreting the answers they get.
Okay. All right. Alex, you look like you're ready to get in. You're ready to. You've had your 2 coffees. You're ready to get stuck in. Go on.
Well, I agree a lot with what Matt's saying. So I think if you're looking at, I think most salespeople are too salesy. I think especially when you're looking at some of the corporate worlds. From that initial phone call, they're initially trying to sell, whether it be financial services, legal services, and it kind of takes away from that kind of genuinity of the call. And I think that most people don't like to be sold to. And Ryan Serhat says, people like shopping with friends, and you've got to be that person that they feel they can rely on, they can trust, and then you can still sell them things later on. But it's all about the timing. And I think that, Matt took the words out of my mouth, but our job is to solve, not to sell. That is our job. And we meet people at all different times of their life, and unfortunately, a lot of agents don't listen. The person will tell them why they're there and what they're doing and why they need to sell, and then they'll just sit there bragging about their awards and how fantastic they are and how they've got the biggest market share, and they've just completely missed the reason that person wants to move. And I think that's where I think there's too many people come into the industry, like Matt said, with this preconception of what the job is about. And it drives me mad when I hear people say that we're passionate about property. It's like, no, you've got to be passionate about people. It's about 99% people and about 1% property. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong.
That old interview classic. What is it that interests you about? I love property. I love location. Location. One more. I'm getting confused with the business in the show. There's a lot of waffle and a lot of nonsense around how people want to be in a estate agency. But I'll play the spiky role because you three are all singing from the same hymn sheet. There's a lot of nonsense out there about I do this because I really want to help people. I do it because I love getting, the most important thing to me is to get a positive review at the end of the service. And I just don't get me wrong, it's great. It's wonderful. Of course, you want to deliver great service. But the reason I want to deliver great service is, of course, I want that. And I want our team to make sure people feel a certain way about how we've delivered service. We want them to enjoy it, of course. Wonderful. But actually, the review fuels the fire for the next piece of business we can do. And we're running a business. It's a commercial operation. There needs to be a margin, financial gain, whatever you want to call it, profit per deal. And it's like you're not allowed to say that anymore.
I just want to make money. I'll say it. It's the only reason I do this job. I want to make money. I'm lucky in that of all the careers out there, this is the one that I enjoy the most. But I can still list 20 things I'd rather do on Saturday than an estate agency. I'd rather go and play tennis. I'd rather play golf. I'd rather sit in a deck chair and do sweet F all if I could. But I do estate agency to put food on the table and buy nice things. Now, the problem is, as soon as you say that, the reaction is normally, well, you don't care about the customer then. It's like, no, it's not one extreme over the other. And funny enough, I have learned that if you look after the customer and give a great service to make money from them, they come back to you and give you more money on quite a regular basis. But I can honestly think, go on, Matt.
Sorry, mate. No, I agree. And there is this, because it's the way the swing's gone. And I talk about a lot, but yeah, we're here to make money. That's the end result. But agency is a fucking horrible job. So you actually do still have to love it. Let's be completely honest, right? If you don't enjoy being an estate agent, you're not going to do it for that long. The amount of people we lose to recruitment agents, and things like that. If you look at it, I've never met a recruitment agent that isn't an ex-estate agent in our world. How many times someone comes to your prop tech and go, I used to be an estate agent. Yeah. All right, yeah, fine. So don't get me wrong, the money comes, after, but if you didn't actually enjoy the work, there's so many different kind of careers you can kind of go and do. If I just want to earn money, I can go and do something else and probably earn more money. So if you're not in a position yet, and I mean Scott Gunn's nearly there, he'll be able to retire, by the time he's 26. You can tell that. But if you're not nearly there, and it's pure, you want to earn money, there's other stuff too. You do have to have a love for this game if you're going to stay in it long term.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's we use the word care. If you care enough about what you do, you're going to do it well. You're going to try and do it well. You're going to make an effort of it. But right, let's put it right back. Good salesperson. Why are salespeople so average? What is a good salesperson? Because this is how I would answer that question. Right, what's a good salesperson? Someone that is able to deliver successful results on a consistent basis. Regularly, consistently successful. So successful to me looks like a certain number of listings. So if you KPI or you metric it, depending on what model you're in, and I appreciate people watching this are going to be in traditional high street agencies. They might be negotiators, they might be managers, they might be business owners, they might be self-employed agents, independents, whatever it might be. But you've got a number, you want to hit that number, you want to achieve that number, you want to win those listings, but not at any cost. The real thing for me, where I thought we might go in this conversation, we haven't, I've got no problem with that, is that we might talk about why the fees are so low in this industry, in this country. Because Scott mentioned earlier on that training's not taken so seriously. You know, it's pretty easy, stick it on, you know, it sells itself. Whereas you look at other agents, so EXP is a great example of agents. I'm sure you get lots and lots of feedback from other areas of the world where they charge proper fees. And you guys maybe are thinking, what's the score? Why do we not do it here? And I think, yeah, there's an element of it that life is easy. But actually, if you decide to stick your flag in the sand and say, I'm not having that. We're not doing that. If the average fee in the UK is 1%, I want 2%, and go out there and get it and make it happen. I think you can think long-winded. My answer is an agent that gets good fees, has their instruction volume, and has success. So sells properties at the price they say they're going to or above that. But when we talk about agency, I don't know. Is it, Scott put his hand up and said, I'm here to make money. Good for you. Me too. Absolutely me too. Why have we become a bit sort of soft around the edges in this industry?
Don't forget, why would you join a state agency if you're a top salesperson? What's your realistic earning opportunity in typically, before we talk about the self-employed movement, over the last 10, 15 years? How many people earned over 100 grand in a state agency between 2005 and 2015? Not very bloody many. So why, if you're a top salesperson, would you choose a state agency as an industry? Like, trust me, right? I left a state agency to go into recruitment for about 3 years, and I went from being top of the tree in a state agency in my business to being absolute bottom of the rung. I had the slowest wit, the lowest billings. My reaction to incoming phone calls was slower than everybody else. Like, it was a learning curve. Those guys will eat you for breakfast. So if we can work out a way to help attract some top salespeople into the business and retain, there's a reason I left the state agency, got tired of earning 35 to 40 grand a year for working really hard. Why would the top salespeople stay in a state agency right now? Now, I do think the self-employed movement is actually potentially going to solve that issue for a lot of people. And between us, we're all part of that, right? Anyway, so that's not necessarily a pitch directed at EXP. But I think as we start getting people who are going to earn 150, 200 grand, I do think we're going to start to attract and retain some serious talent in the estate agency industry. And I think that's going to drive fees up.
I mean, I hope so. I think everything is interconnected. I posted something on social media a little while ago, and how you join up the dots, that everything comes back to the people need to earn the right amount of money to attract the talent. If you've got great people, then of course, quality of service goes up, consumer sentiment improves, and that allows us to almost culturally raise fees, irrespective of the individual that does a great job themselves. So I completely agree. There's an earning issue. And I think there's another issue that if you look at unemployment, what's it, 4.2%, something like that right now, the pool of talent we're fishing in, it's not great. People aren't looking in other sectors and thinking, I fancy a bit of a state agency. People aren't jumping ship to come to us.
Well,
go on, Matt, what do you think?
Well, because we're trying to recruit at the moment, and so it's a very finite pool of actual existing agents, like you say. And as Scott says, what maybe the top salespeople from other industries aren't coming this way. But I'm getting loads of CVs from people in different industries that do want to kind of get into it. But then what it is the case then of this, it's the employer being willing to take them and then train them, which is something to cover. So, I'm a big fan of people who are in hospitality, for example, right? Because the customer care generally is there. They can take someone being an arsehole to them and kind of keep a smile on their face and deal with that. But you've got to warrant that training in them. And I think where businesses have kind of high turnover, a lot of owners think, well, I've got to train this person all skill set, and then they'll piss off and work for somebody else. Well, that's your fault because you should have treated them better and kind of kept them. So I do think there might be, I agree with you, we have to look outside the current profession for new blood to come in, because we can't say it's going to improve. But there are people that want to come into it. People do still have this vision that it is this kind of glamorous job, and it's about showing them what it's really about, and then training and kind of retaining. But in terms of fees, I've always said the quickest way for anyone to raise their fees is to get their competitors to raise theirs. So actually, this kind of like collaborate. I know we can't do it. So we can't all have this thing and say we'll all charge this. But actually, if you're putting out content, and I know, pretty much everyone on this does, and you're wanting to help other people. We've got a webinar coming out next week. One of the first people to register is another agency owner in my town. Fine, I don't really care, because if suddenly they go up and they raise their fees, I don't mind being undercut at 2%. That's fine, but we need to just help each other, I think.
Yeah, 100%. That's the exact point of this podcast, of Agents Movement. Some of my own team can't work out why I post some of the stuff I do, because they say, you're telling everyone what we do. Well, if our neighbours are charging 2%, then our 2.5% doesn't look crazy. It looks so much. If we get everyone in this country charging 2.5%, we can start charging 3%. That's so. I'm with you. Get everyone on the bus. Let's move together. Let's move forward together. I'm not going to start on the training part, because we've sort of touched on training, but we're knocking this out in 45 minutes, if I remember rightly. So we won't open up the can of worms around training. Go on, Alex, you got something. Go on.
Right.
Other than the guy breaking into Scott's house. Go on.
He's got Adam Day painting his windows.
Look at me like him, isn't it?
Well,
there he is.
I think in terms of just I suppose from my view, I think the problem is, especially with young blood coming into the industry, I think there's definitely a misconception of what it's all about, and I think sometimes some generations are a little bit more entitled to thinking what they should be earning, what they should be getting out of it. It's true. We've interviewed people, and I think their expectations and what they think they can earn with the experience they've got, it's just like, that's just not going to happen. And I think there's also an element of people who have been in the industry for something like 20, 30 years. I mean, I interviewed someone who, again, been in agent for 30 years across the table, and we did a little bit of role play with them. They were useless, and they were asking for like a 50, 60 grand salary. And you're just thinking, again, it's that kind of, there are certain people, I think, that feel they're beyond change. I think that's the problem.
But Alex, in that role play, who was wearing the blindfold?
I'm not going to say.
You're right. The entitlement thing is it was actually the subject of the podcast last week. You're 100% right. The entitlement piece is, again, though, that's another, like, we could spend 45 minutes talking about that. Everyone wants the next job. They don't want this job. We see it all the time. I guess that's also the world we're sort of living in now. You can make your excuses, which I guess I am, by saying we're living in that world now. But to Matt's point, find the right people, train them, and turn them into what you want, as opposed to, settling for the wrong, which I know is much easier said than done. Right, good stuff. On to section 2. We're gonna smash this, and it's a nice segue actually, because it is section 2 is the social hand grenade. So this has been featured for a few weeks. Some I've seen on social media. Bit of a hand grenade in that it got a load of reactions, got a load of engagement. This week I've selected, I'll share it with you guys so you can see it.
I'll go back to the entitlement thing while you're looking that up, because I don't know about you guys, but like I am one of the few that always wanted to do estate agency. Like, since I was about 14, 15, I've always wanted to be an estate agent. I know the typical thing is to say, I just fell into it. I don't know why, probably just because it was an opportunity to wear a suit, and no one really in my family ever did, and I thought that would be cool. But I remember I used to walk up and down the estate agencies every weekend in my CV, just handing it out, like literally every single Saturday. And it was like 6 weeks in, one of the guys at an estate agency said, "You've come in every week for 6 weeks, like just come and have a cup of tea with me." Now, it's not the romantic end that he hired me, but he gave me some tips and told me what I might like about the industry. And in the end, a couple of weeks later, I got a job somewhere else. I remember being absolutely buzzing. I got $8,000 a year and was not on the bonus scheme and had to provide my own car. Then I started recruiting, right? When I started doing recruitment, I remember I was recruiting for Countrywide, sort of back in their heyday. I was ringing 20 to 22-year-old people and saying, I've got a job for you. It's $18,000 a year plus commission. You earn $25,000 a year and you're going to get a BMW 1 Series. I was literally greeted time and time. I thought, this is just money in the bank here, these fees. And just people just used to say, it's Saturdays. You go, yeah, we'll involve working Saturdays. They go, yeah, that's not going to work for me. You go, yeah, okay, all right. And I thought, oh my God, I'd jump at that at 21 years old.
Yeah. Isn't it funny that how many businesses have maneuvered towards not making their core team work weekends in a bid to retain them? And for 20 years, weekend's a weekend. That's when you're doing your business. What are you talking about? You don't. Yeah, let's bring in some random people. Let's bring in our least experienced person who comes and works for us 4 hours on a Saturday to sell a £2 million house. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, funny old world we're living in. Right, I found it. Thanks, Scott. Covered me nicely there. 6 months from now, you will either have 6 months of excuses or 6 months of progress. The choice is yours. Little bit cliche. I like this sort of stuff. I hate excuses with such a passion. My wife and I argue on a daily basis about the excuses she makes for our 3 horrendous little girls. They're always up to something, and there's always a reason why. I think estate agencies really, one of our major talents is the ability to create an excuse. I think it's a real talent we've got in. What do you think? You like that? Don't like that? Feedback on that? Excuses?
Why were me and Alex on this podcast at 11 o'clock when it didn't start till 12?
Because I f***ed it, Matt.
All right, fine. Okay, good. I'm just
no excuse. No excuse.
I just thought I'd double check. Yeah,
listen, I wear it like a badge of honor. I made that mistake. And not just you 3, the 3 that are on after you later on, I've also screwed them over as well. I am ruining 6 people's day. And anyone watching this, hopefully a couple of hundred, I'm ruining yours as well with this level of banter. Why are we so good at excuses in the estate agency? Alex?
I just think it's like with anything, it's easy to blame something else, something outside your control. At the end of the day, we're in control of our own time. And I think that, something that always stuck with me is what you do in the next 30 days will affect what happens in the next 90 days. And, if you're not willing to put the input in, you can't expect the output. And I think that's the problem, that it's very easy to blame other things, that I didn't make that phone call because of this, or I didn't go knock that door because of this. And, we procrastinate all the time, but then we'll blame other people for our failures. And sometimes it's very much up to us to make the decisions on where we spend our time. We've all got the same amount of hours in the day. It's up to us how we choose to use them. So I think a lot of the time it's just it's the easy option. But I'm always making excuses to the wife about various things, but she always calls me out on them.
Scott, 6 months of progress or excuses? Because, obviously we've got, really difficult headwinds. The market is doing what it's doing. It's flat. There's no business being done. Everyone's reducing their price. It's okay that we really struggle with the end of the year, or what do you reckon?
When it comes to excuses, I think in our industry, it partly comes down to the fact we're not allowed to make mistakes. In an office, people aren't generally allowed to put their hand up and say they've made a mistake and look to actually pick up on feedback and progress. When you look at, how they operate in operation rooms and things like that, like they report every single near miss so they can learn from it. And we don't do that in the estate agency. Most of us are flying by the seat of our pants. We're too embarrassed to admit we've made a mistake, or come back with a lower fee than we should have done, or just own missing an appointment, or whatever it might be. We all do it. And I prefer to adopt I make too many mistakes to try and cover them up on a daily basis. It's much better just hold your hands up. But there are excuses and there are reasons, and I think sometimes it's worth dissecting what those reasons are. Something that we see a lot, people, particularly when we're promoting a self-employed model, will say, well, why aren't people joining? They're just making excuses. I hear it a lot. They're just making excuses. Like, no, sometimes there's reasons, and that's okay. We've got to understand that as well. So I think it's a very difficult one to answer. I need to know who posted it before I slate it. You throw that at me one week. What do you think of this, Scott? And I'll slate it. It'll be someone.
Adam's going to be on the phone next week. Yeah. You didn't like that thing I posted?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. No, I don't know. I'm not sure what posts like that really achieve. I think you've got motivated people who are motivated whether they see that today or not, and there'll be someone who sees that and gets motivated for 5 minutes and then goes back to exactly what they were procrastinating about before, really. Yeah, that's my view.
You get after a lot of training sessions. People leave, masterminds and summits with notepads full of notes, and they're going to go back to the office and implement everything. And it's that implementation, I think, that a lot of people fail. Again, they have the intention, but then they just don't follow through with it. And I think, that's why, again, a lot of people tend to make up excuses then about why things weren't done. But
that kind of post is only useful if it's then followed up with a few actions that you can take. So if that was related to fitness, I would be saying something like, here's what you can do this afternoon to improve your level of fitness, and here's what you can do tomorrow to get started. Otherwise, people just get motivated, but they need direction. That's what people need. They need direction rather than just motivation. Just motivation doesn't get you anywhere.
Which falls into your operating room example. the coaching. There's always someone watching, observing, coaching, helping you progress and move forward. And actually, I guess we work in quite a tough industry for that, because everyone's doing their own job. You know, your line manager is doing their job, and it hasn't necessarily got the time. Forget about the inclination and whether they want to. They're running around doing their stuff. So it's really difficult to help coach and improve you, other than structured training, which I always, we do loads of structured training, but I think the real value is in the relationships and working together closely and helping people with what you hear, see, and do. But okay, interesting post.
Got an idea with that.
Motivation
I
or
read
not?
something the other day that was really cool. And I might get this slightly wrong, but we're not going to have many pilots listen that are going to correct me. And if you are, then please do. But they've got a rule, something in the aviation industry, which is like, if you make a mistake when you're flying a plane, you've got something like 24 hours to report it, like total amnesty. So a near miss, or, I don't know, you didn't put the landing gear down in time. I obviously don't know the mistakes a pilot might make, but I think they introduced something like a 24-hour amnesty where you can report any error you make. So then all of your friends, colleagues within the industry can see you made that mistake and can all pile in with solutions as to why that might not be. So, examples of things that have been fixed have been, I think it was a Spitfire had a landing gear, and the like the missile thing was both a push button, both a lever that you did that. And through feedback that lots of planes were putting out their landing gear instead of firing missiles, they then changed it to like a dial. So one was a push, one was a dial, right? It's a really, really quick solution and makes sense. Now, why in a state agency do we not have something like that, where you make a mistake and you get an opportunity to just say, look, I've just fucked up on this offer negotiation. This is where it went wrong. This is what I did. And then everyone in the team can talk about a solution and a way to avoid that happening again. I think that'd be massive for us if we had that sort of environment within that sort of culture within the business, where you can just hold your hands up and say, this is what I did wrong.
But I think it can exist, and it does. And I probably name some businesses where it probably does exist. But I think it loops back to the training point at the start, right? Because if you think of so I was a corporate agent for 10, 11 years. So I went on all the training, and you trained to be a salesperson, but you're not ever told what to do if you've made a mistake. And the other thing is, like Ben, you used the phrase like line manager. We train management, we don't train leadership, and there's a massive difference. So the manager really always just wants to kind of cover their back and make sure that it wasn't me, so and so did that. We have a really simple policy here. We just say, if you make a mistake, hold your hands up. You're not going to kill anybody in a state agency. It's very, very unlikely. So hold your hand.
Caveat.
Yeah.
You said you're not going to kill anyone, and then caveated it with, well, okay, it's very unlikely.
Yeah.
Trying to work out the scenarios.
The problem is, I can feel my brother's voice going, gas safety certificates, Matthew, gas safety certificates. So, like, in letting agency perhaps, but you're not going to. And we have like eat the frog is that cliche thing. So every morning in our morning meeting, we will make a pledge of one thing we've got to do that day, and invariably it's an eat the frog moment. It's just, let's get that out of the way and kind of move on. But it's about showing stuff. So like I obviously make quite a few ups, but I'll go and tell people. I say, listen, I cocked out. This is what I've done to resurrect it. And I think if they say you're willing to admit it, then others. And again, it's that. When in January I said, let's have some failures this year, because if you're not trying anything new, unless you're failing at things, and it's again, you have to do that publicly, support, and then in the background in the quiet rooms, say, listen, don't do that again. But you have to show it. So you need someone to make a mistake, and then you need the manager, leader, or whoever it is to show how it's kind of dealt with, and it can move on from there. But I do think it's a lot of it is in training. We're all trained to win, and we're not trained actually. If there's a mistake, don't worry about
it. I agree. I think the more you fail, the more you learn, and you shouldn't be afraid of failing, because that's where sometimes you make your biggest growth, and you just think, okay, I f***ed up, but next time I'll do it a bit better, or I'll do it a bit differently. So if you're not willing to own up to your mistakes, there's no way people can help you improve. So honesty is always the best policy. If you've done something wrong, just be open about it. But I think again, people are sometimes a bit too proud to admit they made a mistake, and they'll just deny it. I've worked with people in the past that they'll just lie and even say, so what, the client's lying? Why would they say it? Why would they phone me up complaining about this? Oh, I definitely didn't say that. I definitely didn't say that. Well, why are they on the phone to me saying you did? They wouldn't just do it out of their own, just to their board. afternoon, they're unhappy, but they'll just deny that they even made a mistake, and that's, I think, again, a big problem.
I think the biggest lie in every estate agency office is I've left them a message. How many times is that said constantly? You know, did you get hold of Mr. Oh yeah, I left them a message.
Let me dial them now and see if they pick up.
The classic.
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head there, Matt, haven't you?
Yeah.
Right, on the subject of dishonesty, let's move on to our new section, because I've got to tell you about an instance we got going on. Right, so this section, you can't make it up, just ridiculous story. Something we've got going on. It's a live deal, so I'm going to be vague. We sold a property about a month ago. Value is in the region of £2 million. We were doing a bit of off-market work on it, sort of discreetly working on it before thinking about launching it in September, but we sold it in the summer. The buyers are selling a £3.5 million property, so downsizing to a 2 million, and their property is under offer, and they are under offer to cash purchasers. So they're buying £3.5 million home at cash. So we've done the usuals, the chain check stuff. It's a nice small chain, 3 properties involved. We spoke to the agent who's selling our buyer's property, all the details. I won't get too specific here, but self-employed agent, years and years of experience. We like that. That model fits for us. We like dealing with those sort of people because skin in the game. They're going to work hard to make sure this progresses. They fit with the sort of people we like to do business with. So cash purchaser is going to exchange in 21 days. We're going to get this through. They want to do it in 21 days, very specifically because they want to secure the onwards. Great, wonderful, beautiful. We use Gazelle. I don't know if anyone knows, it's a reservation agreement. Brilliant product. If you're not using it, it's worth a conversation with Gazelle to lock in our seller's property with our buyer, or our seller and our buyer. So, the exchange after 21 days, we're not there. Okay, all right, we should be, we're not. So we're trying to get hold of the agent involved to discuss what's going on, because the bottom of the chain holding things up. So they've gone from being cash to they're going to get a small mortgage. Okay, all right, 3.5 million is a lot of cash, and maybe they're porting something and they want to hold a rate. And okay, all right, fine, yeah, sure. Not what we agreed. We're going to be done in 21 days, so that shouldn't be on the table, but okay. Now they're going for a much, much, much larger mortgage. Well, where's the 3.5 million cash that you've told us you've seen? You know they have. They've invested that into something else, even though they were due to exchange on their property 4 days ago on their onwards. So I don't think you can make up. How naive does this particular agent think we are as a business, that this bollocks can still go on in this day and age? I mean, there's just no way that your buyer is buying a £3.5 million property and has invested all their money cash into something else a week after they were due to exchange. Why are you telling us this bullshit? Why? Why the lies? What is going on in the world that this nonsense still goes on? So that's my little rant. You can't make it up. I can't believe this nonsense still goes on. That's
Did you send him that picture asking if he wanted 6 months of excuses or 6 months of change?
I'm going to say, I mean, listen, he's on the verge of getting sent something else, Matt, actually.
Hey.
This nonsense behavior. But that's my little, what have you guys got? Can't make it up. What nonsense or madness have you got going on in your world? Anything you want to share? Get it off your chest. Any funny stories? Anything you want to say? Alex, I know you sent me, you got about a dozen, haven't you? You're like a stand-up comic with the amount of things that happen to you.
Well, if we're looking for a funny story, something to kind of lighten the mood a little bit, people, I think sometimes we all say we could write a book about the things that can happen to estate agents. But one of the probably maddest things that ever happened to me is that I had a client who was selling their late father's house, and he lived out the area, and he would come down probably once a month just for insurance purposes to say that he'd been to the property. So, but he would always let us know when he was coming. So I had a second viewing booked at 9:30 in the morning with first-time buyers and all their families, because obviously, like they do, they want to come round. So went to the house, unlocked the door. In terms of timing, it couldn't have been worse. As I opened the door and walked into the house with the family, he was walking down the stairs bollock naked. And I had the whole family behind me. And as you can imagine, it was quite a knee-jerk reaction from all of us. So obviously quickly closed the door. I had to go and apologise to him. Luckily, he was very nice about it. But when we talk about communication issues, he rung the day before to tell the girls in the office, so just to let you know, I'm coming down for the weekend. and the girl in the office hadn't connected up that I was going there at 9:30 and didn't think to tell me or leave a note anywhere about it. So unfortunately, like I said, communication is key, but very lucky in that case that he didn't want to. He took it very lightly, but we didn't really speak about it after that. But every conversation from here on in was very, very awkward.
I thought you were going to say he called into the office to let you know that he was going to be walking around his house naked for the weekend, not that he was actually visiting.
Maybe he knew I was coming. Maybe it was all a ploy.
I've had one of those in the past, and the fella, he came down the stairs just enough to be kind of like, we were kind of like eye to eye, but not kind of the eyes like really.
We were eye to eye. It was,
I think you're in a better position, Alex.
Yeah. Well, let's just say I don't think the family were very impressed behind me. So, but they still bought the house. So, again, win-win. Yeah,
you got to be careful how you throw that word "impressed" around when there's a man walking around naked. That's not, that's not fair. Right, silly stories. Anything, chaps? Or on to the next thing.
We had just on your. I just thought this on your honesty one. So again, it was in my corporate days. We had this out. The manager did the managing. Didn't really do a lot. I was the lister and we had a negotiator. It worked really well. I'd listed, sell, and it was great. We had this one go, and we sold it. I think the seller was a builder. We loosely knew that, but not to any great extent. And anyway, so all exchanges, we're all happy. He phones up, and I have to get the phone, and he starts getting really angry. And he says, "What's this invoice?" I think we'd invoiced him back then for $5,000 plus VAT. And I was like, "What have you invoiced me for?" And I was like, "Well, because I'm not sure if you were made aware of how this works. We sell it, And he goes, "Yeah, but so and so, the negotiator, told me that if I built him a porch, I wouldn't have to pay the fee." And I was like, this is a company with like 300 branches. How do you think like a negotiator is allowed to say that? And I was like, going to the manager, how do we invoice for a porch? And I was like, yeah. So that was the best one. Then the negotiator did the classic thing that Alex said, was like, I never said that. And I was like, it's a mental thing to make up, and I know you do need a porch. So that was a great one.
What was the outcome of that?
The outcome of that was the guy did play. The negotiator kind of had to do whatever he had to do, but the bill got paid. And I don't think he had a Porsche. And then same company was and there was a hospital nearby, kind of like for mental needs, and it was like they were allowed to roam around, but they always had like chaperones behind them. And this one guy kept coming into my office and telling me he was going to buy the entire company. And then eventually I just get bored. So I just negotiate with him. So he'd kind of walk in and he'd be like, and I'd be like, yeah, listen, I want 40 million for it, mate, or I'm not selling. And he'd be like, oh, you, I'm only going to give you 20. But he had some really angry negotiations. And then at the end, he just went to me one day, listen, if the butcher comes in looking for me, don't tell him you've seen me. I owe him some money, right? So I was like, that's weird, okay. And then, a bloke walked in and said, has this guy been in your office? And I was like, yeah, he comes in like, who are you? And he goes, I'm the butcher. Right? And I was thinking like, shit, it sounds like Lockstock or something. This guy's like, I was like, why do they call you the butcher? And he goes, because I own the butchers. He's had sausages off me and never paid for them. Fair enough. So yeah, that was it. That's how I used to spend my Saturdays when I had to work Saturdays, was just negotiating on the sale of corporate companies I didn't know.
Nice. Yeah, that's pretty good. Mine is just a rant about other estate agents. Isn't it? I got to get out more. All right, very nice. Waffle of the week. So I got this morning, and I've got to share it with you guys. I'm good at sharing the screen, as you all know. This is worth a share. So this guy connected me on LinkedIn today. Obviously, we get a load of sale. You guys, I'm sure, bombarded. The sales stuff on LinkedIn, it's relentless. GDPR doesn't work.
Scott is emailing this bloke as we speak, saying, "Have you considered owning your own estate agency business?"
Hi, why Ben. Not? I see we both have brackets. Insert common interest in common. This is on another level. Obviously, occasionally you get a mail shot that calls you Mrs. Madden or Mr. Ben, but this is hilarious. I've never seen that before, where something as specific as a common interest needs to be inserted, and he hasn't. Firstly, absolute moron. Worst sale technique in the world. But I had to share that. That is pure. out there, there are so many dud. I'm big on AI and automation, all that sort of stuff, but it shows you can shoot in the foot. Waffle of the week. What nonsense have you guys seen out there at the moment? Well, because this segment is designed to prove that there's a lot of waffle out there that we should just be ignoring a lot of the time. Anyone seen any? I mean, it's everywhere, isn't it? Alex, you got anything?
Yeah, I think I was recently on an appraisal and obviously speaking to them about another appraisal they had, and the term "let's test the market," how that's still getting thrown around. And this is a house which is very similar to 3 others that are on the market that haven't sold, and the agent recommended they put it £25,000 more because they think it's worth testing the market. And I think in the market we're in now, I think if you test it too high, you're just going to fail. And I think it's going to end up probably selling for a lower price because it's going to sit on the market. And as we all know, the longer something sits on the market, the less appealing it becomes. And to hear these kind of lines still going through all right, and the agent was signing them up to a 4-month contract, and it's just like, well, surely that rings some alarm bells. They're saying, yeah, we can get more money for it. All right, we've got just the buyer, and you just think in this market.
You just muted yourself somehow, Alex. I don't know if that's podcast AI kicking in, saying Alex is about to have
language.
25-minute rant.
No, sorry, that was a phone call coming in. Bad timing. But I think that's the thing. I think there's just all these phrases agents are still throwing around. But I know that people are worried about holding on to stock. But this is a market that shows agents' true colours. And I think that when there was someone else that I was speaking to, and they've been in a 6-month contract, and they've dropped the price by $100,000 since it came on. And you just think it's just all this nonsense and waffle that they're throwing out there. I just think in the long run, the client is the one that loses out.
Yeah, pure. I mean, that's pure waffle. The old test the market line, 4-month contract, 6-month contract, $100,000 off. It only came on the market at $200,000. I mean, disastrous. Matt, waffle of the week. Anything you feel like needs to be called out for pure nonsense?
I don't know if I don't want to upset anybody, but agents.
Go on.
Yeah, so I was on a valuation yesterday evening, and 2 others out, and I was explaining. So where we are, I believe we have 3 markets. So I would say it's the hyperlocal market. So they're the people that live in the areas and really want to live there. Locals, Chelmsford, and then we're London. And where we are, we don't get Londoners kind of on the East London border. The Essex East London bit coming out. And this one went, oh yeah, the last agent I had out, she said he spoke to lots of agents in London, and I was like, what do you mean? And she goes, yeah, because it can go in a shop window in Mayfair. And I was like, and I just went, that won't happen. She kind of, I couldn't help myself. And she stepped back and she went, sorry. And I was like, yeah, no, he's a member of this thing and he's told you can go in a shop window in Mayfair. I can tell you now, I have never sold anything in this area to somebody from Mayfair, And as it happens, I actually have dinner once a month with quite a few agents from London. So I can actually speak to agents in London if I really wanted. But I think that, it used to be back in the day, didn't it? Oh, we have a network of agents and your computers didn't even link up. And this agent was also charging 0.97. I was like, if a Mayfair agent's going to want half of fucking 0.97, you're going to be lucky. But yeah, so it's just that kind of, don't get me wrong, marketing's marketing, but just that bullshit is still saying, oh yeah, we've got this big London network, and not true.
Fugazi.
Well, I've come up against it. Obviously, we're starting from scratch. Obviously, I haven't got a database, and I'm honest with people I've met, and I just said, look, I don't have this massive database of buyers that other agents have probably told you they have, but I can tell you full well, I bet you that they don't mind that database, that they tell you they're going to bring people, but they don't. So I think that's, again, it's one of those lines that gets thrown out there to lure the customer in, but I think we all know that a lot of agents aren't going to sit there and ring through the last 6 months worth of buyers. They're just going to wait for the phone to ring or for a portal lead to come through.
But what I want to know is, what are they doing? Like, if they're not making that phone call, what are they actually doing?
It's not on Rightmove. This is not on Rightmove. I'm waiting for the lead to come in. So
it's just sitting around feet up, because I'm not exaggerating. Our guys are non-stop all day, every day. It's not with viewings. There are viewings. Of course there are viewings. And there are appointments and there are evaluations, appraisals, marketing appointments. But if they're not doing that, the lead generation work and hitting the phones, it's relentless. So if
the average estate agent works 2 hours a day. They're in the office for 9, but they work 2. I would say, and I say that's anecdotal, clearly, but these are, I've asked several people that I know who run businesses, So this is like a really common question I ask people who run business, employ people. What percentage of the time do you think your staff are being proactive? And I reckon 2 to 3 hours maximum, including appointments per day.
Most of us are just sitting around on podcasts. They haven't started yet for an hour and a half.
Well, we did say before this call, didn't we, that this was scheduled for 11. It's taken part at 12, but every single one of us was able to still be here at 12. So I think that might prove my point in me. It's just
productivity. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I walk down the high street and I see groups of people in a stage office just sitting around. It looks like they're just having a chat.
Yeah.
That was my
Well,
motivation to start my own business, and that's the truth. I've said this plenty of times. I remember after I spoke to Adam 4 years ago, and I was sort of on the fence, am I going to do it now, am I not? And I dropped my little girl off at ballet, and I've told this story so many times. I went for a little walk. You know, when you're a dad, you get all these little 1 hours where you can't quite get home, but you're like, what am I going to do now? So I went for a little walk. I looked in every single estate agency window in Ramsgate, and almost to a person, every single one of them was staring at a mobile phone.
Mm.
And I looked and I thought there's actually never been a better time to take on our industry.
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, so that was 4 years ago. I said something similar, or had a conversation with someone that said right now, more about service as opposed to estate agency. I think service is the poorest it's been in my lifetime. I've never experienced such people, service providers, whether it be retail, hospitality, estate agency, whatever it might be. People just don't seem to care about service. I don't know if there's a lack of people to bring in to deliver service, but the balance there is that what a great opportunity, because people who are badly standing out is easier than it's ever been. Sorry, Matt.
I think we got away with it. Well, not we, but I think the pandemic caused a lot of that to kind of happen. I always say I went up to the council a little while ago here to talk about a council tax bill, and I walked in. There was place was empty, and I used to always go in and see the ladies next with all the rental stuff. We always have the odd thing come in. And I went, oh yeah, can I speak to someone about the council tax? And they were like, yeah, you've got to phone this number. And I was like, yeah, but I'm here. And she was like, yeah, I know, but you've got to call. And I was like, but that woman behind you, she's going to answer the phone. I was like, so I was just standing, why don't I just talk to her? But I do think a lot of stuff kind of during the pandemic, it was an excuse to almost close shop for a lot of people. And they haven't kind of caught back out of that.
Don't you find it crazy that you can call corporates now, and not a stage, I mean just like big corporate businesses, and they still have that voicemail that starts with, we're experiencing extremely high volumes right now due to COVID. What do you mean due to COVID? What?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Also,
like, excuses.
Well, I think there's a difference between turning up and showing up. And I think a lot of people turn up to work every day, but they don't show up ready to give 100% of what they're there to do. And obviously, as employers, people who, it's obviously so hard to know you're paying people salaries, and they're sat there talking to their friends or messaging on Instagram. And it's and like again, it comes down to that when people say, "Oh, I want a pay rise," or "I think I should be earning more money," and you think, "Well, you need to increase your productivity because at the moment, do more deals, and yeah, we'll get more." But they just think, "Oh, I'm entitled to more money. I just want it." They still sit there on the phone.
Yeah, and that's it. Yeah, we're coming to that difficult situation where those people are going to start to gain the power if we don't bring more talent into the industry, because you can't not have a workforce. Scott, I haven't asked you, waffle of the week. Anything you've seen out there that you want to highlight?
Oh my God. When you asked me to have a look, I just started scrolling through LinkedIn. I was like, I could talk about that. I could talk about that. I could talk about that. I just think, as an industry, we're known, or, people think we're dishonest, and everyone right now wants to change the industry and change it for the better. And I just keep seeing so much shit that I just know people have made up, even if and it might be a really little thing. It might just be adding a little bit of jam to the story or whatever, but why not just be honest about everything? It's so much easier. And there's one particular thing I keep seeing, and I won't say what company it is, because actually it could be one of quite a few, but I keep seeing, we're holding this event, we've had 60 to 70 people turn up, and then there's a photo of the event, and you're like, look, unless like 45 to 50 of them are in the toilet right now, there is not 60 to 70 people at your event. So why not just say, and actually the irony of it is the company that posted that exact thing the other day, because I'm looking going, that ain't right. I'd have been impressed from getting 14 to 15 people in the room. So actually, if they, instead of being, the negative is I'm looking at that going, bollocks. Whereas actually, if they'd just gone, we worked really hard and we got 15 people together all at the same time, I'd be going, fair play, well done. So,
or just don't talk about the numbers of people that have attended. You don't need to lie. We had a successful event.
We the last dinner that we as you know, we hold a dinner once a month for estate agency owners. You're more welcome to come.
Well, you waited 45 minutes to get that in. Fair play, well done.
But I posted about it the other night, and I literally, before I posted, I think I was like just over 20 people turn up. But in the picture, I actually went around and counted how many were there, just because I always know there's some dickhead there counting, and then
that's me.
There's a
that's me.
Gunn in the background.
That's me.
Like to call out the bollocks. Yeah, but you're right. Yeah, this LinkedIn, it's rife, isn't it, with nonsense. And I'm gonna. Well, he says the agents movement trying to do a podcast help agency, but there's a lot of people that are supposedly out here trying to help everyone, and quite a few of them I know. And when they've had a beer, that's not who they are. That's not their character. When you get to people know people really well, you know the truth. By the way, I'm not Mother Teresa. Raise the standards in industry. My business makes more money. That's I'm completely connected to this concept. All right. Finally, we're going to go. So we're not doing bad on time. We're under an hour. I'm going to go over to Sam Offley, Agents Together, final piece, and then we're gonna sign out. It's been a good effort, chaps.
Hello, Pastor Cyril guests. Now, my question to you this week is: what can estate agents do in their branches to help improve their team building?
I don't hear those before I play them to you. So we've got two EXP guys who don't work in a branch with a team necessarily. So I'm sure you're going to have loads of really good feedback on that. But just as a quickly, in case you don't know, in case you've been living under a rock, Agents Together is a mentor-mentee charity. It's free to be a part of. You can join and be a mentor. You can join and be a mentee. I highly recommend it. Really, really valuable. I've been a mentor for a few years. It's a great initiative and it's free. So it's worth a chat with Sam. Over to you guys. Matt, as our resident guest who has a team building, other than obviously just getting smashed like we used to 20 years ago, what's it look like nowadays?
Well, I could just, listen, we won't be the greatest at this. There'll be things, people do things better. I'll just tell you what we do. So every month we have a team member of the month award. So it's anonymously voted for by the other team members. And the winner of that, they get a certificate, and then everyone goes and gives them a clap. But and then at the end, so the last Friday of every month, we kind of close down, if you like, for about an hour and a half, and I buy everyone lunch. We've got a room here, which we entitled the boardroom, because we like to think we're special. And we all go and we all have to eat. I always say a family should eat together once a month, so we all go and eat there. Whoever won the award gets to choose what we have for dinner there. So we do that. Monday morning meeting. So Monday morning meeting ends with Monday morning gratitude. I always think people should start the week, because nobody comes into work every Monday jumping out of bed thinking this is going to be great. So we all just literally go around the table, one thing we're grateful for, just to try and put a bit of a smile on our faces, because sometimes people say things that someone thinks is a bit funny. And then every meeting, like I said earlier, we make a pledge, one thing we're going to do that day to move the business forward or eat a frog. And then the next day you have to say whether you did it or not. And again, it's not to count people. I'm a big fan of accountability. And I think high achievers want that. So it's not so we can go, oh, you didn't do it. Well, I did call someone this morning because he didn't quite hear his. But it's just really because then they're kind of saying they're being accountable. And if they did it, they're getting the praise and the recognition from their peers. And I think that's what it is as much. Yes, me and Neil can tell them they're great, but actually if they're getting recognition from their peers, I think that means just as much. Yeah,
completely agree. Lovely. Charles David Casson people, if you want to apply, they're always looking for great people. They're always looking for great people. Scott, it's been a while, since the environment. I'm sure you've got loads of fantastic anecdotes from what you used to do to bring your team together. Or what do you reckon? How can we work on that team building culture?
I think the recognition was the first thing I thought of. So, echo Matt's thoughts there, that recognition of a great performance or somebody that's turned a situation around, and make sure that everybody has seen, it's all well and good like waving the stick at people, but actually it's much better the carrot of praise is always much better. I would like to think that I don't need regular praise, but I do. I love it.
Everyone does.
Yeah, and that's the same, for everyone. We all have to act tough like we don't, but I love it when I get a little well done.
Listen, Scott, you've been fantastic today, mate. Absolutely fantastic.
There we go. And even I asked for that. I'm still appreciative of it and grateful. But I think just increasing communication as well within a team, like we were talking about earlier on, being able to talk about your mistakes, your ups and your downs, because that just creates a really open, collaborative genuinely collaborative working environment that's not just about puffing out your chest and acting like you're the big I am. I think that they're the best environments where people can win together and fail together, and just be prepared to do that.
Nice, very nice. Completely agree. Alex, big finish. You transitioned to EXP. So 4 weeks ago, you were part of a really, really great team that I think, from the outside again, has a great business culture, gets on really well. What was the secret to the success over there? What do you think?
I mean, you joked about getting pissed up and do that, but I think there is still an element of having those moments where, obviously Joe that I obviously worked for, but still got the biggest respect for Joe and what we built. And I think that, very much, Joe was never afraid of saying, look, guys, we're going to go to an awards do, or we're going to go to the races, and just doing things as a team, sometimes out of work. I know not everybody wants to do that, but I think that when you do have a team, it just kind of helps you get to know them on a more personal level. And I think, being able to be there for each other, because I think there are a lot of teams and situations where, you don't like the people you work around. It just makes for a really awkward working environment. But, if you know you can rely and trust on the people around you and that they've got your back, there's no better feeling. And that was an environment that, I was very privileged to be in. So I've worked slightly in a corporate situation before. And it's just again, you could cut the atmosphere with a knife. It's just not a nice feeling. You don't like turning up to work every day. And there's no better feeling than turning up somewhere where everyone is excited to be there for the day. So I think, like everybody else has said, just celebrating those wins, and just going to the pub on a Friday when you've had a good week or a bad week, and just kind of decompressing before the weekend. I think that is something that we used to call it Wine Fridays, and it was just great because everyone would come in. Well, because we had members of the team, like our sales progressors, work from home, so they weren't seeing the team. So it was nice for them to come in on a Friday.
Yeah,
they talk about what happened in the week, and we talk a little bit of shop, but it was, even if it was just for half an hour, it was just nice to spend that time with them. And nice. That is something that I will miss. So yeah.
Oh, don't get emotional on us, Alex. You're moving forward, but you're right. I completely agree. I always think if work's fun, you're going to build a great team culture. But what you three have really said without saying is good leadership, quality leadership ensures the team come together, and that's what maybe is missing in some areas of the industry. But good stuff, Sam. I hope that was really helpful. Chaps, you've been bloody marvelous, wonderful stuff. Matt, you were all right, but the other two, EXP, you absolutely represented exceptionally well. New format, new style, less boring news, more silly stories, bit more fun, bit lighthearted. Hope it's been enjoyable. Give us a like, show us some love, give us some engagement. We're going to say goodbye. I'm going to hand over to Watkins for his weekly Watkins whimsy, which we always do at the end because we know everybody holds on for that. That's what everyone's waiting for. That's why we have it at the end, to make sure you watch us. So see you soon. Thank you, chaps. It's been emotional.
Cheers, Ben.
Thanks, guys.
Remember, you can't control the property market, but you can control the way you deal with it. There are always people that want to sell houses, and there are always people that want to buy houses. It doesn't matter what's happening to house prices. It's the way your attitude is to it and put deals together. We might have to actually start working for our money now. It's hard work out there. But if you put the hard work in and play the long game, you'll win.